and welcome to episode number 79 of the Knitting Teaspoon podcast. I'm Liesbeth, your host, and this is a podcast which is all about knitting, sewing, and basically all of the fiber crafts that I feel like. Today it's been only knitting and sewing, I think. Yeah, it's been slightly over a month, tiny hiccups on the way, but here I am, just a week late, so let's get going. Today I am wearing a finished object, and this is an Agnes top by Tilly and the Buttons. Does that sound familiar? Maybe it does, because I've made quite a few of these in the past and I absolutely love this pattern. It's definitely a staple in my wardrobe. I wear Agnes tops almost every day in my life, so I do love the tops, but some of the fabrics that I've used to make them in the past have started to stretch out with wear, and I'm on the verge of doing some experiments with trying to shrink them, with washing them hot and such, but I think it's also maybe time to start replacing some of my shirts that I've worn a lot with ones that actually fit me, because at some point this neckline, it starts to get very deep, and I start to get uncomfortable with it, or it like the sleeves. Well, you can't see it on this one because I made a variation this time to cut the sleeve short. I think there's actually a short sleeve variation in there with a ruffled shoulder. I did not take that modification. I just I made it with long sleeves in the past, or no sleeve. I also have two versions without any sleeves at all, so I just attached a neckband like thing to the shoulders instead of a sleeve. But this time I decided to use the sleeve, but just fold over the pattern along the grain line, like perpendicular to the grain line, so that basically to make it just a lot shorter. And I actually did not know how the length would turn out to be, because I just folded the pattern and I didn't have a clue whether this was going to be like this short or like maybe even over my elbows. But I decided to just go with it, and I quite like the length, just above the elbow. It's a nice length. It keeps your body nice and warm, but keeps your hands free to do whatever. Like dishes or cleaning diapers. Yay for being a mom. Anyway, so I'm absolutely loving this new shirt. And I decided to immediately go and try and make some more. One thing that I wanted to say about the sleeves, usually I make them long sleeve shirts, and I think already the pattern itself is made for women who are slightly taller than me. I am, from the tallest country in the world, but I'm the smallest girl there. It seems like, or at least one of them. I mean, I'm definitely small here, and I think in most of the Western countries I would not be very tall. So the sleeves, if I make them according to pattern, would already be like 2 inches too long for me. And if the fabric stretches out over time, then I can cover my entire hands with the long sleeves, which is not really what I like. So I would still scrunch them up, but it leaves a lot of excess fabric there, which I do not really like. So I decided to start and phase some of the fabrics out, which is a shame because I really like the patterns, but if they make me feel uncomfortable because their shape is not what it used to be, then it's just time to maybe say goodbye. Maybe try to save them first, but if that doesn't work, then maybe it's just time to let go of them. And because I liked this pattern so much, I decided to make another one as well, and I have a bunch of fabrics lined up to make even more. This is just a plain light blue fabric, aqua, possibly, I don't know. I also decided to actually trim down the sleeves this time to 2 inches shorter, and actually write that down on my pattern paper, because I tended to always keep on cutting the sleeves 2 inches too long, and then maybe fiddle a bit to make it fit for me. But this time I actually took those dimensions onto the the pattern paper so that next time I will cut them 2 inches shorter right from the beginning, which might save me some fabric to maybe make something else out of the fabric. So this one is obviously not quite finished yet, so the neckline is done, which I like because the neckline I think is probably the hardest part in here. I'm also not really happy with how it turned out here. Like, it looked good when it was lying flat, but now I feel like it's a bit wobbly here, so I don't know. Still room for some improvement, even after making, like, I don't know, maybe 8, 9 Agnes tops so far. But I still need to finish the sleeve ends here because this is just plain fabric. I just shortened them to make them fit me, and same for the bottom hem, also needs to be finished. And then I will have another Agnes done. And maybe if my husband and son stay away on their walk for long enough, I can finish them before they get back. But, getting a podcast out is a bit more important for me now. So, that's it for the sewing content. So let's get into the knitting content. And let's start with a finished object. So last time I was working on this Ring of Fire Cowl by Nancy Marchant. And it's done now. I decided to go with the 7 repeats. That was also what I thought I counted from the book, and it seems like decent length for a cowl. I've been wearing it. Initially I thought it was maybe a bit too rough of a yarn to be nice and comfortable around the neck, but after giving it a wash and a blocking, it was just fine. So it really needed that wash, I guess. But it's good to know that it's softened up so much from washing. Still not the softest yarn ever, but that wasn't to be expected. Anyway, so I don't even know. Yeah, this is it's this direction, and it was really interesting also to see the finishing technique. It was actually not that hard to do, and I quite enjoyed knitting brioche for the first time. So I will definitely try some more in the future, I think. Although I have no plans for any specific projects yet, because I simply don't. And maybe inspiration will strike at some time. I have been looking for some yarn to make another project, but I have this idea in mind. There is this pattern also in the book, and it has this image of a purple background with a pinkish color contrast yarn, and the pink color has all these kinds of speckles in them, and I kind of want almost that colorway combination. And I've been looking at my local yarn store, but they just don't have anything that is quite close enough to what I have in mind. So I've been holding off from buying that yarn because, if I can't find the perfect yarn, then I'm not going to like it as much. Being a yarn snob, it's not always easy. Anyway, so finished object, and I'm really happy with that. Then there's another finished object, also one that I've been working on the last time, and this one is a little bit of a disaster. Here's the other finished object. This is the sock in a sock socks that I've been knitting. So these were knit inside each other, mostly, that is. I basically knitted entirely to the end, and then I decided to try and put them on separate needles to do the mattress seaming in the end, because I just couldn't figure out how to do that while they were both on the same needle. And I had put them both on separate needles, and then I tried to pull the one sock that was inside out of the other sock, and it turned out I couldn't. Because I had knit the socks together at 2 points actually, and the silly thing is it didn't even happen in the complicated stitches. Like, it didn't happen with the decreased stitches in the toe. It didn't happen in the heel or anything that was even slightly complicated. It happened somewhere like in the midway of the sock, like the easy peasy part, which was supposed to be smooth sailing, and yeah, turns out it wasn't. So I ripped back to that point because I wasn't going to tink back everything, like it was like halfway in the foot. Yeah, so I wasn't going to tink back all the way there. And then I was kind of like, should I try to put them back on one needle again? But I was like, no, I've done my challenge, and it went quite well, but I failed at some point, and I decided to just finish them separately. But if you thought that you could just finish both of them just by knitting like the sock like in the usual direction, you're wrong, because well, maybe that's because of the way I knit them, because I kind of knit them reversed, so I had the wrong sides together, but that meant that when I pulled them out of each other, that usually when I knit, I'm right-handed, so I will knit, I have the stitches on my left needle and I knit them and get them onto my right needle, but that worked for one sock, the outer sock, but the inner sock was the other way around, so the stitches were on the right needle and I would have to work them to the left needle, or I would have to switch direction somewhere and go from there. That might have been possible, but I thought that would be ugly, so yeah, I had to mirror knit the entire sock or knit the sock inside out, which was interesting, but yeah, they are finished now, and as you can clearly see, I think it's a bit more clear now, the heels are matching up now, and yeah, you can see that one sock is definitely longer than the other one, and actually the longer sock fits my son at the moment. The smaller one is actually a bit tight for him already, and yeah, I let him walk around on the socks a little bit, but they're also quite slippery for him, so I don't like him wearing these socks at all. So yeah, it's a bit of a disaster honestly, but still glad I tried this technique and that they are finished and that they're done and that I don't have to worry about this ever again. And I don't really recommend trying this technique. Should have known that from the start, maybe. Anyway, but if you're up for a challenge, you do you. I mean, way to go. It was fun trying to knit a sock in a sock. I think on my Ravelry page there's a link to the description that I followed, and I will also put the link to my Ravelry page and further notes on this project in the description box down below, which is like always there. I mean, I do this for every project, so that is for every knitting project, because I don't really have a nice way to store any information about my sewing projects, but I also don't really know what to say about my sewing projects. Maybe I should keep track of what fabrics I'm using. Maybe. I don't know. So far I've been enjoying my sewing well enough without tracking that as well. Anyway, so yeah, that's these socks. These socks are made out of drops Fabel yarn in a natural colorway, which I dyed myself into this blue tone color. So yeah, it's been one of my first experiments with buying actually. So yeah, I do like that I finally turned that into something. So then there is another finished object, something that I've started and finished since the last podcast. So here it is. It is the Cityscape tank by Lisa Ross. Maybe Lisa with an initial Ross. I don't know. I'll put it down on in the screen and also in the description box, obviously. Yeah, then this is knit out of Lana Grossa Cool wool, and I don't know the colorway number, but I will look it up. It's just a solid blue or teal fabric, and I really like this tank top. I actually watched Lorraine from Agnes Crafts, and she made one. I think by now she's actually made 2 or maybe even more of these tank tops. And I saw the tank and I thought, you know what? That's just what I need in my wardrobe. So I decided to make one too. Yeah, here it is. I did lengthen the pattern slightly because while I'm small, I don't have a particularly short back, and I like my shirts to cover my hips nicely. And I also switched between sizes here because I know that this type of ribbing panel in the side is supposed to, you know, slim the waist, but my measurements were really one size bigger for my hips than they were for the rest of my body. So I decided to, you know, try and let that ribbing panel only do so much, and I increased a little bit as well, or actually decreased, because you knit this from the bottom to the top. I also kind of played yarn chicken on this one, but I actually managed to knit it out of just under 5 skeins, including the swatch, but I didn't swatch a lot because I always cheat a little. I just need enough stitches to be able to count my stitch gauge, and from there I'm usually ready to go. If there's any really complicated pattern in something that would matter a lot what size it was going to be, I might need another more complicated swatch, but usually I'm lazy, so yeah. But I finished this in just under 5 skeins of this yarn, which is 50 gram skein, so 250 grams, and I think it's like a sport weight yarn, something like 300 meters per 100 grams, I don't know exactly. Yeah, it was really fun to work on this project, and I'm happy that it's done, so I can wear it, and yeah, I am sure I will enjoy this one. Very nice and soft merino yarn, so I'm already enjoying the prospect of wearing this very nice and warm tank under my clothes in the winter, but I think it's also very nice in the summer to keep your body warm, but your arms open to be able to crawl off if it's hot. Well, it's really been hot here. We've had a very, very rainy summer. For those of you who've heard of floodings in the Netherlands and Belgium and Germany, they've been hit worse than the Netherlands actually. It's quite far from my home. I do live in the southeast as well, but we're not affected, luckily. I do know people who have been, so yeah, it's been kind of scary, but we were not affected, so let's just keep it at that. On to the next project, and this one is a little bit of a fail as well. Well, not really a fail, I guess, and kind of a fail. This is a sock that I'm knitting for my husband, and this is out of, I think it's Lana Grossa as well. They have this nylon white cashmere yarn, so it has 5% cashmere content in it, and otherwise I think 80% wool and probably 75% wool and 20% nylon, in a dark bluish color, and this is actually the second sock, which I cannot show you because I did finish the first one and then did all of the second one since the last time I podcasted. But I went to my parents for the weekend and I left the other sock there, so I cannot finish this one now. I think this is like about as tall as I was willing to knit the leg before I have to start the ribbing. Might still have to knit a few more rounds, might have to tinker a few back, but I think this is approximately the length at which I've started the ribbing on the other sock. But as I don't have the other sock with me to measure it, yeah, I can't finish this sock. So that feels like a bit of, yeah, a silly thing, because I really like to have this finished and I want these needles to be free to go and knit another pair of socks. But that will take a while, because it will be a while before I see my parents again. Although later this month, so by next podcast episode, I might have these socks finished. But yeah, I felt so stupid for just leaving my sock out there, but that's how it goes. I mean, nowadays I don't travel just with my own stuff, but I have to like keep track of all the baby stuff. It goes along with me and my son and my husband if we travel together. So yeah. I made sure to check all of his baby stuff and I forgot about half my own. Anyway, so yeah, but almost done. And because I couldn't finish this pair of socks, I decided that maybe I should finish another project, because I didn't really want to cast on a new project without being able to finish something too. So I decided to pick up a very old whip, something that has been dormant for quite some time. So yeah, let's get into the next project. So it's been a while since it's been on this podcast, but I am finally continuing on my fishy socks. So I decided to knit knee-high socks with all kinds of fishy patterns, with waves and whales and fish and whale tails and dolphins, and well, the rest is just repeats of the same patterns. Yeah, and make some knee-high socks out of them. And yeah, here I am. This is a bit of a mess, but that's what you get if you store a project for well over a year like this. But I still need to finish the rib on the top, but this is a bit complicated because this consists of 3 types of yarn. So this is the main yarn held together with some elastic thread. I don't know to what extent you can see it, but it's this white thingy here, that thread. And there's actually also another reinforcement yarn that I've knit along with the yarn as well. But I needed to finish the heels on both socks first to make sure that I could divide it evenly across both socks for the ribbing. So I decided to first continue the second sock before I finish this one. So this sock has actually not changed since I put the project to rest, but this one has. Yeah, I've been really enjoying knitting this project, and honestly I don't know why it has ended on the wayside for so long. Maybe because I think it has something to do with winter season being almost over or something, I don't know. I just fell out of love with this project at some point, and now I don't know why, because it's really enjoyable to knit it. This is long Jawoll yarn, and the yarn comes with these tiny bobbins with reinforcement yarn in them, or at least some of the colorways do, because I later acquired a colorway card. I don't know, how do you call it? A shade card maybe, with all the colors of this yarn, like an old one that my local yarn store was phasing out, so she said I could have one. And turns out not all the colorways come with the reinforcement yarn in them. Anyway, but yeah, I'm using this in 2 colors, also with colorway numbers that I cannot remember for the life of me, but maybe I have a project page for this project. I hope so, because it's kind of a design project as well, so I don't really know if I put much details online already anyway. But yeah, I'm finally knitting this again. And also I don't know if I've put down notes anywhere on how I knit this, but I started from here where I put this marker in, and then I continued knitting, and I completely forgot about putting in the gusset first. So without the gusset, obviously it was very different than the other sock, and looked a bit strange there. So I had to go all the way back to insert the gusset, and then I knit the heel, and then I had actually finished the heel, and then I thought, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. I mean, I had 6 repeats of this wave on the new sock, and I had 7 on the old sock. So I thought there was something with the increases that I did there, but how did I do those increases? They are very nicely hidden away, but I figured out what I had done in the past, and this time I did take the time to write down some notes on a piece of paper that I will be able to find back, because it also contains all the schematic drawings for the pattern. So yeah, it's been quite an adventure. So this part of the sock I've kind of knit like 3 times or something, but now it's the way it's going to stay, and now it's just a matter of knitting this pattern repeat. I think once more, it was twice more, 1.5 times more. Here's one more set of waves, there's another set of waves, and there's only whales on top of that, so like 2.5 times more of the pattern, and then I'll be up to leg. So yeah, I'm really enjoying finishing this with just 2.5 pattern repeats to go. I'm pretty sure that this will be done by the next episode as well. So but I might record the next episode by the end of August, like the last weekend of August, to keep in that kind of rhythm, but I'm not really sure when exactly I will get around to doing the next episode, but we will see. I mean, around that time-ish. End of August, beginning of September seems like a nice thing to aim for. I think that's everything I've had to share with you. I think in just a little bit less time I might have enough time, because we have holiday plans. Nothing much. We're staying inside the country because, pandemic. Although I have had my 2nd vaccine shot now, so I'm really happy with that, because that means just slightly less worrying about what might happen if I were to catch COVID. So I'm really happy that that's finally done. Still in the waiting time, like after your 2nd shot, we are only allowed to count ourselves as fully vaccinated 2 weeks after. So I've had my shot on Monday, and it's Saturday now, so still have to wait slightly over a week, but by now I've recovered from the shot, so that's a win for the first bit, and now just have to wait out my last week of not counting as fully vaccinated, and then enjoy a little bit more freedom, hopefully. Anyway, that's all that I have had to share with you, and I hope you all have a lovely time, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye bye!